who doesn't love the smell of fishy fingers in the morning? Hello, and welcome to yet another Valheim video. My third, in fact. This one's in response to a question I was asked about what I'd been doing to sink so much time in the game. I'm paraphrasing here, although probably not as much time as I've sunk into trying to record this commentary. Valheim's the sort of game where you can easily spend many hours pottering around, whether gathering resources, exploring, antagonising the locals, or playing around with different building and structure ideas. I played it a lot last year, continuing long after most of my friends had stopped while they were waiting for new content to be added, but eventually I too also drifted away from it. Some new content eventually did appear in the form of the Hearth and Home update late last year, but while it added a few new things, it wasn't enough to tempt people back into the game. I did briefly pop in to see what had been added and build a few of the upgrades, but as I wasn't actively playing at that point, I wasn't tempted to head off into unexplored areas looking for the newly added tar pits. Having said that, I still kept tabs on videos showcasing different build ideas, and so a couple of months ago, during a lull in other games, I decided to start playing again, in order to experiment with some base designs and see if I could come up with something a bit more like a natural village, with buildings separated by paths and surrounded by grass. Due to the need to fortify the bases against raids, this proved somewhat impractical, so ultimately I gave up on the idea. However, having cleared a large area, that did give me space that I could then use to start testing new building concepts. Inspired by various videos of more advanced building styles than I typically created, I started building, and then this led to me creating a new prototype for what would become my new default house design. That's the building that you can see behind me. The final version of that house, including crystal windows and yes, dark wood roofing tiles, is what I showcased in my last video. The requirement for dark wood meant gathering tar, and that of course meant searching for tar pits in the plains. By the time I'd finished gathering the tar, not only did I have a shiny new house design to show off, but I also had a renewed enthusiasm for playing the game. Having done this, I was then wondering what else I could do to improve my base. I could try building a brand new base, possibly on an island, to give natural protection against raids, or I could try expanding my existing base, which felt quite cramped in some places. The island option was appealing, but it would mean trying to find a suitable location and then potentially having another cramped base due to the limited size of the island. On the other hand, the idea of expanding my existing base was somewhat off-putting, because it would mean a fair amount of work, the first of which would be to fill in the existing ditch I had around the base and make a new one. After a brief but unsuccessful voyage trying to find a suitable island, I decided that maybe expanding my existing base was the best idea after all, and that I could perhaps make it less daunting a prospect by spreading it out over several months, doing a little bit at a time. I decided to call this the Great Expansion Project, with the intention that it would be a long-term endeavour. Unfortunately, I hadn't counted on me being me. Having made a start on mapping out the borders of the expanded base, I found that I appear to be incapable of leaving things unfinished. So each incomplete task became a kind of obsession until I had completed it, and then of course I could move on to the next task to be completed. The end result is that I've played the game more in the last month than I have done in the previous 8 months. The Great Expansion Project, far from being a long-term idea, has already been finished. So this is the end result. My base is actually on 3 levels, this lower level where the dock is, the upper level leading into the meadows, and the middle level between the two where I have my workshop and portal hub. As you can see by the stone walls on either side, that shows the extent of the original base, which looks a lot when spread over 3 levels, but each level can quickly be filled up with just a couple of structures. When I planned the expansion, I didn't have any particular plans for what I was going to put on this lower level, so in the end I've just used it to plant trees. I've got pine, birch and beech. Going up to the middle level, let's just close the door. If I followed the wall round here where it curves, you can see where the original outer wall was. So everything that's not paved here is the new expansion part of this base. I don't have any particular plans for what buildings to put here. I just like having the room so that I can build stuff as it's needed. And I did a similar thing on the other side of the base. So having completed that, the first thing I wanted to look at was the kitchen workshop building. That was functional but was quite cramped, and indeed I'd had to redesign parts of it to fit in the new oven that came in as part of the Hearth and Home update. I created a test version of this on my other server, and I like the design of it, so I basically just replicated it here, although as you can see I obviously replaced the roofing tiles with dark wood. I made use of dark wood in other areas as well, such as the partition here that I've used in the windows, the trellis effect, which I think looks particularly nice. So as you can see, the workshop element, the forge and workbench are on a raised platform compared to the rest of the building. And this was deliberate so that I could then put the upgrades for each area underneath the floor. I also had room to fit in a fermenter here, and indeed to store the potions. I was also able to have a nice open area for the different hearths and for the oven. And as you can see, the prepared food I've put to the right of the oven, and there's plenty of room there for everything. That was one of my main concerns with trying to combine the kitchen and workshop with a storeroom, was whether or not I'd have room to put everything in here, especially all the contents of the storeroom that I had up in the main house. As you can see, I have actually managed it. I've got separate categories for all the different types of things, and indeed I've got a lot of empty space so that I can expand into it as and when new content becomes available. So having completed that building, the next one to look at was the portal hub. The original portal hub was an octagonal design, 6 meters on each side, that I could fit in 8 portals on the ground floor and 8 portals on the first floor. I did experiment with different designs, but ultimately I ended up sticking with the octagonal design, even though I had expanded it now to be something like 6 meters by 10 meters for the different sides. It's an irregular shape, but it does enable me to have lots of expansion room for the different portals. And as you can see up here, I haven't actually finished putting portals in, and some of the portals I do have are not being used. In the upper area of the base, you can see that this expanded area, again, I don't have any particular plans for. I have created a little sundial here. While not strictly speaking necessary, I thought it would look nice. And this empty area over here I've made great use of to create a prototype version of the main house, which I found invaluable because I was able to identify and correct structural flaws in it. This green area here used to be where the beehives were, but I used it to create a temporary shack to sleep in while I was deconstructing and then reconstructing the new base. In this area I used to have my garden, but I've, as you can see, made it into a pen for boars. And I've moved the garden itself into this expanded area over here. I may have gone a little bit too far with the amount of room for vegetables, but at least it gives me plenty of option for expanding. And as you can see, I've also put the beehives here and indeed expanded the number of them compared to the previous version. So having done all of that, the last building to attack was the house itself. As you can see, again, I've made great use of the dark wood, both for the roofing tiles and for the partitions in the windows. One of the things I wanted to do was to break up the roof to make it look more attractive. The actual design of the house is effectively a single story for both sides and then 2 stories for the middle. You can see where the dragons are, that there's actually the chimneys underneath them. Please ignore the Christmas tree. It's a shame, but I didn't want to take it down. Again, dark wood is very useful here. I've made the gate out of dark wood, and this long table that forms the centre of the hall is also made out of dark wood, as is the round table by the throne. One of the most attractive features of this house design that I liked was the bay window. As you can see, I've got part of it with dark wood and part of it with iron bars and crystal. I wanted to make sure that the centre area looked distinctly like a great hall rather than just the living room. And as I said, the long table has really helped with that. I've also put in a forge and a workbench here so that you can repair things as you come in here. And indeed the cartography table. This area where I've put wood above the stone part of the floor has been quite useful to make effectively a shelf. And indeed, as you can see here, I've used that shelf to put armour stands, or indeed to put chests in other parts of it. There are 2 chimney stacks, both of them are single, were originally single fires, although one I had expanded out into being a hearth. And I partitioned off this area because I wanted to put the hot tub in here. Unfortunately, the hot tub requires ventilation, which is why every so often it's no longer bubbling. I'll see if I can do something about that later on, but for the time being I'm feeding into the chimney next door. And I like to have a basement where possible, so that's what I built here. Apart from a few upgrades for the forge, I didn't have any particular plans, so I put in a little jail cell. Heading upstairs, this area to the top of the stairs, again I didn't have any specific purpose for. It could be used for storage expansion if I need it, and apart from putting the portal in the corner there, I haven't actually put anything in there or planned to put anything in there. And again, you can see here the dark wood frame of this archway makes for a fantastic window. This central room upstairs I decided to create into a display area for trophies. So as you can see, I've put various different trophies all the way around the room. The only ones I haven't put in are the very big ones or the ones that protrude quite a lot, because I think they'd look out of place. And there's lots of space to put new trophies. Moving into this area, this is the bedroom obviously, complete with dragon egg for nice little glow, and my treasure chest, and again the dark wood arched window. And heading back into the trophy room, you have stairs here leading up to the attic part of the house. Again, I don't have any particular plans for what to do with this area, but it could be used for guest beds or just for storage if necessary. And I wasn't sure whether to put a window here or not, so I ended up with a compromise of having shutters. So that is the new base and the new house. I'm quite pleased with how it looks, and as you can see here, as I said, the bay window downstairs not only looks good but also enables a fantastic balcony upstairs. And I do love having balconies to show off the attractive vistas that you can get in the game of Valheim. So that's the new base, that's the results of the Great Expansion project. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you later for the next one.